So this is the Moza Aircross, and they have an Aircross 2 coming out, which looks like it's going to have the same features as this with the Moza Air 2 combined, so it'll look pretty nice. So this is my battery solution for the Blackmagic Pocket 4K for this unit. What I did, and what's really cool about this, independently these two things will work. This by itself actually has that connector for the power, for its direct line out. I could just use this and we can power the Blackmagic camera directly off of that. So that's running. This pack will give you 2.5 hours of battery use, recording the entire time to an SSD drive. So I tested that the other day with a couple of different batteries. The smaller NPF 5s, NPF 550s, that'll give you an hour and 5 minutes. And in my testing, writing to an SSD drive at 4K 60 frames per second. But this battery by itself has a nice USB out so that you can plug it in for that. It has an indicator as to how much battery you have left. And like I said, it has this direct line out. And the nice thing about this, because it's a standard NPF battery, 970, it is $22. So if you're looking for something that's going to benefit your wallet, this is the thing to get. This little device was, I got just as a little add-on. It was $7 or $8. It's got a variety of methods. It comes with its own Velcro. It comes with a couple of other mounts for mounting it to different plates, as well as this here little bottom plate that can fit into the accessory just like you saw, right onto whatever stabilizer you happen to have. The nice thing about this is that it just allows me to mount this on there without having to use a ton of Velcro and so forth. This device by itself also has your DC out, so it will go directly into it and power the camera. So you don't have to have this particular type of battery. You can just have your NPs, any NPF batteries, including the smaller ones, and pop that in there. Like if you're just trying to conserve weight and so forth, put that on there and through here. And again, it will power the camera, like I said, running to an SSD drive for slightly over an hour. So as everybody knows, trying to remove this, slide it forward or backward to take out the battery is a hassle. And those batteries that come with it, the small little Canon type batteries, they, you get, if you're running to an SSD drive, you're running 60 frames per second on 4K, you'll be lucky if you get 35 minutes. This will, with full recording, get an hour. And at the end of that time, you can swap batteries without having to change your settings or stabilization position. So you're saving time in that regard. These are all Amazon, so that's where I'm getting them. And I'll put links for them in the description below. This is actually a nice little device. It really does make mounting this accessory a benefit. I basically tape this because it puts out such a bright LED. We're going to be doing a night shoot for our next short film tomorrow, and I can't have extra light bleeding into the scene, so I cover that up. It's not a flaw to the system, it's just something that I don't require on set. So on Amazon you can get a bunch of these little adapters so that if you get to a position where you've only got the female, you can then, purchase that little device and then screw on male-to-male receiver, and that can go wherever. Because sometimes you may want it out of the way, or you may want it closer so that it doesn't interfere with the movement of the camera or the stabilizer as much. So you could have that up in there. This little piece here also, this little handle comes off. That's the nice thing about that. So that's not in the way when you're mounting this accessory. And there we go. It's almost perfect. So that way your center of gravity is set up nice. You don't have to worry too much about how it's affecting the actual camera. Of course, it all is about how you tighten it. So that floats right underneath there. Just another alternative position for it. Brings the balance up to that level, but like you saw earlier, you can have it down here at the bottom. So I've got my Moza Air 2 shipping back to Hong Kong because that's right now currently the only place where you can get them repaired is back to the factory. For repair or replacement, it kept coming up with an error code 2, and I could not resolve that, though I tried. And I went a long time. I mean, it went extensively through so many different types of things, but all of it was to no avail, including contacting their help and going back and forth, and they did try their best to help. But that's going back to Hong Kong. At this point in time, shipping something to Hong Kong is an iffy thing in my assessment, simply because of all the unrest that's going on there right now. I certainly don't want my stabilizer to be lost in transit or subject to force majeure and their acts of national security and so forth, which can happen. That's why I am using the Moza Air Cross for the shoot tomorrow. And so that was a lot of my concern was, with the Moza Air 2, I can just plug it right into the stabilizer and draw power right off of that, and it was sweet. This one doesn't quite have that option, at least not in the way I need it. And I didn't have the accessory to pull out power from this. And I don't think this would hold enough juice for what it is. I may eat my words later if I actually work on finding a source of power cable into this, but as of now there's no particular adapter I've found to work. This was a great solution for me. So tomorrow we'll be shooting with this, and I won't have to worry about my power going out, which is always the biggest thing. So I've got rain supposedly on the forecast tomorrow, but we're going to see, because it is an outside shoot at night. If we're lucky, we'll get the window of a couple of hours in there, and we're also going to be running a lot of LED lights. And I say a lot only because I don't know what the situation is going to be for the lighting. This handles low light really well, as you've seen in some of my other footage, recording very pristine video. And so tomorrow we'll be setting up some LED lights, Pixel P50s, as well as a couple other fluorescent lights that I've got for in the background. So we'll see how that runs, and I will keep you up to date. We're going to be shooting a lot of behind the scenes footage of that. For the whole process, we'll be recording separately on the audio, as well as recording audio directly into this. So I've got to figure out how to hook up my audio rig and what I want to do in that regards, because I do like having both actors set up, which I do have, of the BeachTech adapter here, which allows for phantom power out. We're going to be using the NTG2 on a boom, and I'm going to be running both lapel mics, the wireless goes, which I'm running right now, on the Talent, and so each person in the scene is going to have those, as well as the boom mic overhead for redundancy. And the nice thing about this is you can run both of those wireless goes, plug them in here, and have them go out, and it'll record the separate channels with one cable into the Blackmagic camera. I've done this already, and it works really well. So that is one solution. Then it's just a matter of where I want to mount this honking thing. So it does have a little bit of a weight, but it's really a nice device. But we'll see. I'll have to figure it out, because we're going to a location, and the nice thing about this, the energizing thing about this, is I've never been there before. We're going to get there a couple of 3 hours early for the shoot. So I've got to figure out the lighting and everything else without it being dark, and then adjusting all that on the fly as much as I can ahead of time. And of course the actors haven't met each other in this particular scene, so everything is being done on the fly with them as well, which is great because certain actors bounce off of each other in that moment, and you want to have that liveness to it. That will certainly present itself. But we have to do some blocking because there is some action going on. And again, that's all part of the process. That's what makes it energizing. That's what makes getting all of this stuff down and set and capable of going from one thing to the next while we are changing the scene in an external environment. Anybody who's had to shoot scenes outside knows what I'm talking about. Nature doesn't always play nice. I tell you, the people who shoot inside, when we did the inside shooting for the first few scenes, it was like glorious. It was like, there's nothing to this as far as setting up the lighting, as far as having consistent light source, consistent sound environment, that sort of thing. Tomorrow, not so much. But, you know, I shoot a lot of training videos, so I'm used to having to adapt and trying to adjust the exposure and lighting and everything else as the sun changed from minute to minute because of the clouds in Florida. It'll be a challenge, and it'll be a challenge that's just gets you going, because the whole thing is about the story. It's about what I've already written as far as the script and the story, and it's a series. I plan on doing this in a series. So that's the end goal. All of this is really nothing. The story is key. So if all of this can just be there and then be out of the way, then the story can shine through, because then it's the actor's job. And of course, you know, lighting and everything else, that doesn't hurt. But on the director's side, I think I've got everything pretty nailed as far as how I want it to look. Nature and the actors, those are the variables. So I hope you enjoyed this and that it helped you. If you have any questions about it, put it in the comments below, and I will address that as much as possible. Thank you.